Welcome to the advanced video for the Beyond Labs LTI worksheets. I'm just going to show you a few extra tricks you can do for our worksheets, and let's just jump right in. So if you click on any worksheet and click on LTI Home, just like you've seen before, so you should be familiar already with these three things. If you haven't seen this before, go back and watch the grading video. So you can get up to speed, because these advanced settings will be a little overwhelming probably at first. But just a reminder, this takes me back to the preview screen. This allows me to grade by student. This allows me to grade by question. But we're going to focus on settings and questions. So for settings, let me show you here. So summary and intro are things that you can type in and either add videos or images or whatever you would like as additional instructions to students. So I'm going to go ahead and click save so you can see what this did. So the summary adds here on the landing page before students start the assessment. So I would often use this in my classes if I wanted to have them watch a YouTube video or something before they completed an assignment. I would add it to the summary section. And then once students click start, the introduction section adds a message to them before the actual worksheet. So keep that in mind in the settings area, that this is before they even start. And then this section, the introduction, is once they've started any message you want them to have before they work on the worksheet. So as far as due dates go, I would leave this as available. You can adjust this if you want, but it's just a second date to keep track of. We leave these as available always so that your learning management system is the one that controls the due dates. So I would leave this alone, but that option is there if you need it. This copy options from can be helpful. So if there's a certain setting that you like to adjust for all your worksheets, that's fine. But rather than maybe having to go in and click or adjust each individual setting, you can just, so let's say that I adjust Thomson Cathode Ray Tube, I can say, hey, copy whatever the settings are for that other assignment. But let me show you what each of these settings do. So display style may be something you want to adjust. You can have it show each question one at a time, so each question is its own screen, or as we have it now, which is all questions show up at once. And then really you can ignore the video queued option. The submission type is either homework style or quiz style. So homework style allows students to redo each individual question. Quiz style requires them to redo the entire assessment, even if they want to redo one question. They have to do the whole assessment over again, or the whole worksheet, whatever it may be. So keep that in mind. This is, each question can be redone. Each question is submitted individually. The entire assessment, the entire worksheet is submitted all at once and has to be redone together. Versions you can ignore. We haven't coded that functionality into our worksheets. Tries you can adjust, so it can go, I believe, up to 100. This is how many attempts students get on a question. And if you really wanted to, you could even say, let's give them a penalty after so many tries, right? So if they try 3 times, after on their 4th try, they'll automatically lose 5% of their score. So you can adjust that if you want. Again, we recommend that you leave this as it is, or perhaps adjust if you want to give your students more tries on a worksheet. During the assessment, please leave this at no score. You should not change this to each question immediately, because that does allow students to view if they have a question correct or not as soon as they submit it, which we are requesting that you do not do, because students will, of course, share their answers with their friends, and they will cheat that way. So we're requesting that you leave that as it is. Students can view their work. Again, we recommend you leave it as it is so that they can still resubmit their questions with the knowledge of what they've already submitted. But that's up to you. You can adjust this if you would like. View their scores, you can leave this as is. Since the due date is set to always, they won't be able to view their scores. And again, we request that you leave that because students will, again, share their answers. I guess the one thing I would mention is if you decide to adjust the due date up here, so if I say it's due on the 22nd at 10 a.m., please change this to never. And in fact, on most of our worksheets, that'll default to never. You'll notice that they can view the correct answers as well. Again, we recommend leave that at never, which is what it probably will be at. These additional sections really you can ignore. That are going to have no effect on the worksheet. These more apply to the system that we are using to build the worksheets, so you can ignore those. And of course, once you're done, you're going to click Save, so you save your changes. All right, so now let's go to, you can either click up here, or if we go back to our LTI home, this is the questions section. And you can see on the question section, this can take me back to the assessment settings. So with the questions, here is where I think most of you will be interested in making adjustments. If you would like to adjust point values, you can adjust the point values for every single question all at once. So if I just set that to 50, now they're all at 50. I'm going to set it back down to 10. If you want to weight one question more than another, then of course you can adjust the point values however you see fit. And really, if the main thing you would use this for is if you wanted to add a certain weight to one question over another. We don't recommend changing the point values here to adjust the point value of an overall worksheet, simply because our Beyond Labs worksheets will scale the score out of whatever it's set in your LMS, right? So here it's out of 180, but if I were to set this out of 5 points in my learning management system, it would scale the student score out of 180 to out of 5 in the learning management gradebook. You can check each question or uncheck each question, and with that check comes the ability to remove them from the assessment if you would like, to group them or change their settings all at once, which are very similar to the settings we saw on the worksheet. I'll show you that section in a second. We recommend only remove a question if you are for sure wanting to remove it. The questions are hidden in our libraries, and it's honestly a bit of a mess to try and find the question again. If you remove a question on accident and you need to add it back, just let us know. We'll help you find it. But be sure you remove questions only if you are sure that you want to remove those. The group functionality allows you to group two questions together, and it lets you select either. So for example, this is going to pick one of these two questions for the student without replacement, meaning it won't pick the same question twice. So if I were to group in a third one here, let me go here, group these together. Right, so if I were to say select 2 of the 3 with replacement, what this would do is it's going to pick 2 of these questions, and it could pick the same one twice. So it could pick this one both times. It could pick the first one and the second one. It just depends. If you say without replacement, it's guaranteed going to pick 2 different questions. But really, we're not too worried about that. So let me move. Oh, and this is a great example. So that's grouping. And to ungroup, you just click on the ungroup button like I did. So you'll notice when I ungrouped it, it moved my introduction, and it moved my questions out of order of what they were. So if you need to reorder questions, you just click and move the question where you want it to go. So now you see the introduction is here at the top. And then I can rearrange the questions if I want. And they're typically going to be in order of their question ID, so that can help you if you're unsure of what question went where. I can add text here if I want, so we'll say introduction. I'm going to move that to the top, and I'm going to add an additional section break. I'm going to move that in the middle above question 9. And so here, you're going to be able to see what these text blocks do. So if I preview my assessment, let me drag it over here. So you can see so this first introduction is from the assessment settings page. And I guess that is a little confusing. So let me say introduction 2, so you can see that it's not copying itself and repeating itself. So this is from the introduction section of our overall settings page. This is the text we just added. And then you can see down here, there's our section break. So this just adds little texts between questions if you would like. If we select this option that says new page, what that does is it breaks up the questions into categories or into their separate pages. So now the intro is its own page, and then we have our first page, introduction 2, with all the questions contained therein, and the page title, section break, with all the questions contained there. If you want to adjust those titles, you go up here and you can say this is section 2, and then you click save, and then first page title, we can just call this first page and click save. So that's what you can do with the text. If we want to undo this, you have to uncheck the new pages, and you have to start with the bottom one and move your way up, and then just simply click remove. And now the worksheet is back to as it was when we created it. Let's see, I believe that's everything on this page that I can show you. If you go to, so first you can also preview each individual question. So if you click preview, it pops up with just that question and you can test and submit the question that way. This action button, you can add text before, which is just the same as if I clicked add text here and moved it up. You can remove the question this way if you would like. You can template, which is to create a copy of the question. Mine here says edit code. Yours will likely say edit a copy of edit a question copy code or something like that. I'm going to show you what this looks like. Really don't mess with this. If you see an error in one of our worksheets, just let us know and we'll go through and fix it. But this is the inner workings of how these questions work. The one thing I think you're probably going to adjust here, if you choose to do so, is the settings. So just as we could change the settings for the overall worksheet and that applied to every single question, you can adjust each question on its own. So I can say that this question only is going to have 10 attempts if I want, and maybe I add penalties, and really everything else here you should leave as it is. And again, the advanced, I'll show you these here, but they don't really apply. So really it's if you want to adjust the total number of attempts for a question and if there's any penalty. And that is the questions section for the Beyond Labz LTI and what you can do there. Now, a word of caution here. Make sure you make any adjustments to your worksheets before your students attempt it, because our system is set up, and it's a good thing that it's set up this way. If one student at least has taken the assessment and worked on this worksheet, it's going to lock down a lot of the functionality here. So you'll notice that I can't adjust point values. I can't reorganize the questions. I can still add text if I would like. But because students have attempted these, it kind of locks down some of the functionality so you can't mess with it. Because if you mess with it in the middle of students working on it, it's going to cause all sorts of issues. So make sure you make these adjustments before your students do anything. If you forget and you have a student or two that have done something, you can clear those attempts by clicking this button here and then saying, yes, I'm sure. I'm going to say never mind in this case. And what that does is it erases any attempts that the students have done, and your students have to do the assessment over again, which could be beneficial if you need to make a few adjustments. But again, we highly, highly recommend you make any adjustments that you want to before you open the assessment up for your students. And you'll notice there's a few extra action options here. So you can either clear the attempts for a specific question, if there's one question that you think is having issues. You can withdraw the question, which removes the question from the point value, but the question will still show up to students. So students can still see it, and they'll get a message that says this question has been withdrawn, it no longer counts for points. If we make an edit to the code or we make a fix to the grading of a question, then we may tell you to come here and say rescore the question, and that will just grade the question again with the adjustments. And then add text that's the same as it was before. So those are the functionality changes if students have taken an assessment. And that is the Beyond Labs LTI. So you now know how to use every single one of these links in our worksheets. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are happy to help. And I will see you in the next video.